Hi there. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host, Ryan Vanderhei, and I've learned some of my most valuable life lessons from my favorite TV shows and movies. Sure, these works of art entertain us, offer us an escape, and even tap into our emotions. But there's often one E that's overlooked.
And that's educational. If viewed from a different perspective, these stories and their characters can help us to learn and develop as human beings. I'm your co host, Joe Parente, and it's our mission with this podcast to share these unique perspectives with you so you can grow from the show.
The topic of today's discussion: Goodwill Hunting
Love it.
and the threat of wasted potential.
Ooh, I like that.
As always, there will be spoilers ahead, so proceed with caution. If you haven't seen this movie, you gotta stop everything, get out of work,
Yeah.
pull the car over.
Yeah, and
do
where have
whatever
you
need
been,
to
by the
do,
way?
And
Right.
and watch this movie.
Yeah.
And leave us a like, a rating, or a review wherever it is that you listen, as it really helps the show. Shall we begin?
Let's do it.
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
So, in thinking about this movie and watching the cat slowly paw at the chocolates there, um, it was clear to me that this movie is about potential and realizing the potential in oneself and having people around you to help you realize your potential. So I wanted to ask you something, Joe.
Go for it.
Who is someone in your life that has made you realize your potential when maybe you didn't see it yourself?
I've been fortunate. Several. One is my oldest brother. Yeah. He's just been unbelievably supportive of me my whole life since I was wee. Well, he was 12 and a half when I was born.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, it's a pretty substantial spread.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's my godfather, and also just, he's been looking over me, after me, my whole entire life.
Yeah, that's an interesting age gap.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
He was probably able to, by the time you were, starting to, I don't know, go into teenagehood, or he's already in his, mid-20s?
Yeah.
In his early 20s?
Yeah.
So he probably could offer a lot of insight, wisdom.
Yeah, for sure.
And advice.
For sure.
That maybe you otherwise wouldn't.
And it's also about those people who help bring out your potential. They know you really well. They're also and supportive and encouraging and reminding you of what you bring to the plate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is incredibly valuable. What about right back at you, Ryan? What about you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, of course, look, as you said, I consider myself to be very fortunate, very lucky. I've had a lot of people do that in my life. And specifically my mom is somebody who's always kind of been there, behind the scenes, no matter what happened. Like, mom's got my back, and she's going to give me the best advice, regardless of, she's not trying to sugarcoat things. My mom doesn't sugarcoat anything. She just lays it out. If it's going to hurt my feelings or whatever, she just does it. And I appreciate that. And, she kind of made me realize that potential in myself, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But I want to get into this movie.
Let's get into the movie.
I want to talk about Will Hunting.
Me too. Let's do that.
Because first of all, I watched this movie again. It's been a while, maybe like a few years since I'd seen it. I've seen it a couple of times. It's definitely one of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
Mine too.
First thing after I watched it, I was like, I can't believe that Ben and Matt wrote this when they were like 22 or whatever it was in college. Like, I can't. It's just such a well-rounded script.
It sure is.
With a lot of great dialogue, a lot of great plot.
Yeah.
A lot of great scenes.
Yeah.
And a good, interesting concept that I just can't imagine being 20 or whatever, 21, and coming up with something like this. It's just, it speaks to, I guess, how talented they are.
It sure does.
So when we get introduced to this Will Hunting character early on, it's very apparent that he's the odd one out. He's the big fish in a sea of small fishes. But his inclination is to sort of hide that and shove that away and push that down.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost ashamed of being bright and brilliant and intelligent and intellectual. And we see that because he's got his guys, right? He's got his buddies, his friends that he's really close with, and they kind of have this banter, and they kind of get into some trouble, and he's always kind of the one who's like wanting to start the trouble, and he wants to fit in. That's where it really stems from, is Will just wants to fit in, and all of his buddies aren't like him in that way. He stands out.
He sure does.
He's built up in this film to be made out to be a genius, right? We meet him and he's obviously solving math problems that other students and other professors even can't solve.
Not many people in the world could solve.
Not many people in the world could solve. And he's a janitor.
Right.
It's what a funny, like the janitor is, when everybody else is away, solving the complex math equations.
And not owning it.
And not owning up to it.
Yep.
He wants nothing to do with it. In fact, when he's doing one of the last problems that he does on the board, and the professor comes out, he's like, "Hey, what do you?" And he darts off.
Yeah.
He doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yep.
So there's this essence of Will that he's trying to sort of put a cap on, and he doesn't want to be that person. He's afraid to be who he really is and be more than what he's meant to, because he's ashamed. And he's ashamed of his past. He can't believe that he's meant for something more, because all his life has been proof to him that he's not. So, what did you feel? How did you feel about Will and his sort of struggle between, I'm this brilliant intellectual, but I'm surrounded by something that's sort of holding me back, or not allowing me to realize that and get out of there. And we'll get into why that happens.
So why do I think that dynamic is, or
how did you feel about Will? Did you feel bad for Will? Did you connect with Will? Did you want him to were you fighting for him?
Absolutely fighting for him, because he had such a unique, such a rare skill. Not just mathematics, though. I mean, clearly he could absorb. Do you remember the scene of him reading a book? It's almost as fast he could turn pages. Wait, you go this way, like that. He was just so fast with it.
Yeah.
So obviously, he's just super bright when it comes to any particular subject to learn.
Yeah.
I was pulling for him because he was so human.
Yeah.
He was accessible. He's an uber genius who's not on. He might have been on the spectrum, but he didn't seem like it.
Yeah.
He did fit in with those friends.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It might have been work for him to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he did fit in with them. So I found him compelling from the very onset.
Agreed. And so did I. And we learn later on he has a conversation, great scene with Skylar, his girlfriend at the time, where I think she's trying to study.
That scene is amazing.
And she's going, no, seriously, I have to learn this. Like, I really have
that scene.
to.
Okay, there's another scene with
Yeah,
them
yeah.
that
I have to study. Like, I need to.
I need to
know
learn this stuff. Right.
And she asks him, like, how did you, like, most people have to, learn. And he kind of likens it to, like, an athlete or something that just knows look, certain people just know things.
Yeah.
They're not really sure how they can do it or
Yeah.
why, but they can.
Yeah.
And he's like, and she goes like, oh, that's how you are with like books and knowledge. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
So he sort of gives an insight into the audience, into us as the audience, that he's kind of been like this his entire life. It's not something he's had to work
Not even
for.
kind of. Absolutely. He's been
Yeah.
like that his whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not something he's had to work for.
No.
It's not difficult for him. These things come very easy and naturally.
And yet he doesn't know what to do with it.
Exactly.
It's a little kid with an Uzi. Not an Uzi, but you know what I mean? He doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. The only thing stopping Will from reaching his true potential was himself.
Absolutely.
He had to get out of his own way. And sometimes in life, we need someone else to help us do that. Oftentimes, I would say, we need someone, some person. It could be a coach. It could be a teacher. It could be a parent.
Yep.
It could be a sibling.
Yeah.
You need something outside of yourself. You're too close to it.
Right.
You're too close to the fire.
Yeah.
You're
True.
flying too close to the sun.
True.
You need someone from a different perspective, a different set of eyes, that can go, hey man, I don't know if you realize this, but you're a freaking
Right.
genius.
Right.
So the first person that does that is Professor Lambo. He takes an interest in him when he notices that he's the janitor that's been solving his problems, because he's asking and asking and asking, and no kids are coming up. You can't figure out who's doing this. It's like the ghost of the damn building is solving these complex math equations that literally only he can really solve, because he's like this quote unquote genius himself and has like this field medal in mathematics and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he's the first kind of person we see that takes an interest, that tries to make Will see and realize that he can be meant for something greater than himself, that he doesn't have to be the burnout or the guy that's, gonna just barely get by and rack up a bunch of charges at the local police department. That was a good scene too, when he comes and sits in on his arraignment.
Yeah. And you hear the rap sheet.
Hears the rap sheet.
Yep.
Of like, man, this kid is. If you didn't know anything about him, and if you just happened to be in that court that day, you'd be like, oh my god.
But you also heard in the court that he got all those charges dismissed.
Right, because he's so brilliant, and he quotes these like bizarre
very
loopholes in the law,
very
and stuff
Byzantine
that only he
laws.
could figure out.
Yeah.
And so Lambo takes it upon himself to use his leverage as, whatever his contacts and who he knows, to get Will sort of off without prison time if he comes under his wing and he goes to therapy. So that's when we meet. Well, he goes through a bunch of different...
Which I think is very important.
Yes,
I didn't
absolutely.
let you finish that sentence, but we needed to see how therapists tried and failed with Will, because that's giving us an insight into probably what a lot of his previous life before we see him was like.
Sure.
Because he probably encountered countless people throughout his life that saw his gift and tried to reach him.
Yeah.
And it was important for us to see these people fail.
Yeah.
The George Plimpton one, I don't know if you know who he is, but he was the older man that he
Okay, at
said,
the
what's
beginning?
it like to be, closeted like you are? And
Oh,
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah. He's
what,
like, what?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. And then he comes out and he's like, I can't do this pro bono.
I just love this. That was hilarious.
It's because Will saw right through all of them.
Yeah.
He was too... It was like playing with your food.
Totally.
He's too intelligent. He's too intellectual. He's too wise. He sees right through all their BS.
I don't know about wise, but he is intellectually.
Sure, let's not list wise on that list. He sees right through what they're trying to do. He's like, yeah, this is just a game. What? You're going to tell me I'm, childhood this and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. Like, he pretends to be hypnotized.
Right. That was funny. That was awesome.
That was a good scene.
Skyrockets in flight.
Um,
Yeah, that
but
was
it's not
great.
until Sean that he's able to break through, and that's because Sean came from the same neighborhood, and he understood Will, and he could relate to Will. He came down to Will's level. He met him where he was, not down.
No, I know what you mean,
He
though.
met Will where he was.
Yeah, he did.
The vernacular, he became like almost one of the boys.
He did, and that was one of the, because he wasn't trying to establish himself as I know better.
Right.
I'm an expert here,
I'm a psychologist. You don't know what you're talking
and that's
about.
what Will could shoot down. So
Yeah.
the way that Robin Williams' character presents himself as a human, a very vulnerable and flawed human being,
Yeah, like buddy, I'm
was part of what made that so very effective. And obviously coming from the same neighborhood, and then we found out later having some of the same issues with their fathers,
correct.
which are really grim.
Yeah.
Um, it's, I mean, granted it's a movie and they set it all up, but you can see how he was the one. It was perfect that he got through to him the way
Yeah.
he did, and to watch their dynamic develop was awesome.
And that's why Lambo went to him. Once all else failed, he said, I'm sure he thought to himself, well, I know the guy.
Yeah,
Somebody that can reach him. And it takes some time. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen right away.
no,
It takes some time to sort of break down that wall. And when that first really happens is when he has that conversation with him by the lake. So he takes him down
What
to
a
the
scene.
swans. He comes in that second day, and he says, come on, you're coming
Yep.
with me.
Yep.
And he takes him down to the lake.
Yep.
And of course, Will starts his usual
with a wise ass comment.
wise ass banter.
Yeah, a
then
taster's
he-
choice moment. Right.
He tells him about himself. He puts him in his place. He goes, listen, you just talk about shit. You've never lived shit.
Yeah,
All you do is read these books.
right.
But you don't know what it's like to be to smell the inside of the Sistine Chapel. You don't know what it's like to feel the love of like a woman you're in love with and all these
Yep.
things. Like he tells him,
Yep,
you just have read about it.
that's right.
You haven't. He tells him about himself, and I think in that moment, it really affected Will. We see it on his face not only,
Yes, true.
but then later, he goes to call Skylar. He's out in the rain, and he goes
Right.
to call Skylar, and he's without words.
Yeah,
What Sean said to him has gotten through. It's penetrated.
very good. Putting those two together, that's good. I like that.
He can't. He's like, oh, he can't say anything.
And look, that's how the scene ended, with the two of them on that bench, with Matt Damon, Will not saying a word. That was when I thought, God, 22-year-old guys wrote that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
They wrote that scene.
What
and
were they
Robin
doing?
Williams was so pitch perfect.
Oh, he's phenomenally.
I watched
amazing
that
in
scene
this
like
role.
3 times in a row.
Oh yeah.
I backed it up because Robin Williams absolutely was that. He
Yeah.
absolutely was that character. And I love how the camera just stayed on him. It backed up a little bit to see like a bit of Will's face,
Right.
but it really just stayed on him. And it's my favorite Robin Williams performance.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And he says something really important in that conversation. He says, you talk about things from books, but never your own life because you're scared of what you might say."
Right.
Which is such a, oh man, to hear that. How could it not get through? How could that not affect you? And it's finally the thing that does. And then after that is kind of when we see where Will sort of opens up a little bit. They start having
bit.
some regular banter. They start to kind of like get into different things. He's more open and more accessible now that he has a level of respect, I think, for Sean,
Absolutely.
because nobody's probably really ever done that
Agreed.
up until this point.
Yeah.
Again, his previous experience with the psychologist is just like, I know what I'm doing. Let me do my job.
Totally.
And then Sean's like, listen, buddy, you think you know shit. You don't.
Right.
Which is so polarizing.
And said it to him so plainly,
Yeah.
you know? That was really beautiful. I loved it.
So This all sort of starts to come to a head when he has the argument with Skylar where she asks him to come to California.
That's the scene that, yeah, I really love that scene.
Oh, I love that scene. One of my favorite scenes in cinema.
Yep, mine too.
Heartbreaking,
I watched that about 3 times too.
tough to watch. So you watched it 3 times?
I did, and it hurt every time.
Yeah. So he freaks out because he thinks she will find out who he really is eventually, and she won't accept him, and then she'll run away,
Right.
and then he'll be stuck alone in California.
Right.
And he sort of makes that known. It's stemming from a fear of not being accepted,
Understood,
As-
accepted. Yeah, go
which
ahead.
is reasonable
Sure.
given what we know about him and his background and how he sort of lays into it a little bit there. Like he says, you don't want to hear that
Yeah, that I'm an orphan.
That I'm an orphan and
Put
that-
out cigarettes on me.
Yeah,
That's a stab.
you don't want to
wound.
hear that. Yeah. He's afraid of being seen. It comes back to what Sean had said. You're
It is a-
afraid of what you might say.
That's right. Well, and she calls him on it too.
Yeah.
That he's
Yeah.
been living in this little bubble and he
Mhm.
hasn't really been challenged.
Yeah.
It is very safe for him, and he's not used to being challenged by anybody, and now he's getting challenged by Sean, and now this girl that he really, really likes,
Yeah.
might love.
Yeah. And he is also earlier he kept trying to shield parts of himself from her. He kept trying to shield.
The fact that he doesn't have the brothers. That he
Yeah,
said he
he's
did.
he's lying about the brothers. She's like, when can I see your friends? When can I meet your friends? Well,
Right.
maybe one day. He's coming out of the bar with them after she does meet them, and she's like, "Oh, I thought we were going back to your place," and then his
Yeah,
buddy says, "Oh, you don't want to go back to that
one
shithole.
room shithole.
Shithole. You'll never
Yeah.
see him again, or whatever."
Exactly.
So he's like, "No, well, for another time." Like he keeps kind of pushing away this side
Reality.
of himself. Yeah, reality of like, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is just a part of me. But he's afraid. He's so afraid of what? The rejection.
That's right. And Sean put that perfectly because
Mm.
right now you're perfect to her
Mm-hmm.
and she's perfect to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
I love how Sean talked about it's the little idiosyncrasies. It's the little
Yes.
things that they do.
Yeah.
And I think that probably really got through too because he had never even probably considered that. He'd never encountered that. He'd never been close to anyone long enough maybe to have those kinds of things happen.
Sure, which
and to
is
appreciate them.
sad, which is why we
It
feel
is.
for him, why we root
Exactly.
for him, why we want him
Exactly.
to come out of it. So
Yeah, and in that scene, they were both so extraordinarily vulnerable. At least he was for a little bit of time before he got super hard and says, "Yeah, I don't love you."
oh,
I know.
it hurts because she says to him, like, after he's blown up and sort of went on this rant, this tangent about his past, and like, you don't want to hear that stuff. She grabs him by the face and she says, "Just tell me if you tell me you don't love me, then I'll stop calling and you'll never see me again."
And she kisses him on the forehead.
Yeah. And then he looks at her dead cold
Yep.
and says, "I don't love you," and gets his stuff and leaves. And she breaks down.
I love that the camera did not. The camera followed her.
Yes.
Stayed with
We
her.
stayed with her, yeah. It's so
Oof.
such a gut-wrenching scene because for him, he'd rather lose her
Yep.
than risk being found out,
Yes.
than risk being
Yes.
vulnerable, than risk
Yes.
showing that side of himself.
Absolutely. And look, if the world's going to discover his smarts, the world is going to want to know about him. And so, because he is so smart, he is such an unusual human being, the way
Yeah.
they're positioning it.
Yeah.
Once he gets a particular job or something, he's going to get discovered. He's going to get outed
Yeah.
because his gift is so extraordinarily rare.
Mhm.
I actually read about the mathematician that that first professor, what's his name, Skarsgård,
Lambo.
brought up Ramajuan.
Oh, okay.
He refers to he's like a Ramajuan. who was this man who grew up in rural India, taught himself math.
Yeah.
And no one would really take an interest. And so he started to write to a Cambridge professor who realized his brilliance. He is considered perhaps the greatest mathematician of all time.
Wow.
And so that's what Lambeau was saying about Will,
That's what he was trying to.
that he is on that level. And if you are on that level, you are going to get outed. And you are going to be seen.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he didn't want to take credit for anything.
Sure. And I think that that's why he wanted Will to see Sean, to get the counseling, because he knew
Absolutely.
that was something that was going to keep him from
That's right.
achieving.
When it was so clear from how he'd been living his life.
Yeah. There's that brilliant scene with the two of them in the bar when Lambeau shows up and Sean's there, and
Yep.
it's so funny. Like, we always see Lambeau in scenarios where he's not, like, he's all dressed up and he's got the scarf, and then they're in this like dive Irish pub,
Yeah.
and they sit down, and Sean's trying to come at it from a more psychological, human perspective of maybe he doesn't want that. How do you know what he wants? And then there's that amazing sort of runoff where he goes, "Hey, bartender, do you know who so and so is?"
Well, do you know who Jonas Salk is?
Yeah.
Do you know who Einstein is?
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Do you know who Gerald Lambeau or whatever? No.
yeah, himself.
That's
who
right.
is
Right.
like one of the most brilliant
Right.
minds in
That's right.
mathematics, and won the field medal.
That's right.
And so he's trying to tell Sean that, like, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm going through all of this, because I don't want him to end up like me. I want him to be an Einstein. I want him to be like, what are we? He does say a line at some point of like, we'll be depriving the world of
That's right.
this.
Of his gift.
Right.
Yeah.
So had it not been for Lambeau first initially
Agreed.
seeing him, bailing him out, putting him in this scenario, he's helping him out as sort of his, like, I don't know what you call that, your TA or whatever.
Yeah.
He's helping him.
That was his.
He has that brilliant scene where he, this, I'm using the language of the film, but like, this shit's fucking easy to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this shit.
And I don't want to have to waste time explaining this stuff to guys like you.
Yeah.
He says to one of the great mathematicians on the planet.
Yeah, there's the earlier scene where one of the other professors in the college is trying to solve the problem, and he goes, "Here, I wrote it down," and he like puts it out, and then
This will
the
make
guy,
it easier for you, is what he said.
Yeah, the guy like puts his hand. He's like, "Hey, man, we all, have, whatever," and he like kind of walks out. He's humiliating people with how brilliant he is.
Yeah, that professor could not take it.
And so I want to dive into more of like that trajectory on how he's able to kind of realize his potential. But let's do a bad guy break.
Let's do it.
Let's see if you're batting over 150 now. This one I think is impossible. I don't think
weekly humiliation. Don't say that before I
and it wasn't
You're gonna make it
intentional.
worse.
It wasn't like I want to try to find one that's like difficult. I was just like,
I really do see movies, I swear.
So, as always,
I'm not going to look.
I'm going to give 4
Okay.
hints: the year, the genre, the setting, and the actor. Actually, it might give it away. I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
And we'll try and see if you can guess our bad guy break. He's got Google up. So the year that this film came out is 1939. The genre is fantasy adventure. The setting is somewhere magical.
Oh,
That old thing.
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Okay.
And the actor is Margaret Hamilton.
Margaret Hamilton. You weren't going to say Judy Garland.
No, so this is a bad guy break here. So
You're right. Judy was not the bad guy.
So Margaret Hamilton plays the Wicked Witch of the West. Yes.
Wicked Witch of the West. Correct. She was amazing.
Elphaba?
She passed away fairly. Wait a minute. No,
number of years ago. Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think she was like off like Broadway.
Wicked Witch of the West. from The Wizard of Oz.
She was, yeah.
And the reason why I chose this character specifically is because, well, we've got the Wicked movie coming out here soon. If you
Sure.
haven't seen the Wicked the play, in the movie we just introduced to these two witches. Is it Glenda or whatever
Glenda's the good witch.
the good witch of the north, and then we've got Elphelba. I know I'm saying that wrong, butchering that. The Wicked Witch of the West. But we don't really get a sense of like how they got there, what happened. Like we don't really know a lot. And so that's the Wicked, which again is based on a novel of the same author, that kind of gives us backstory into
Awesome.
this character and how she became that. Because at the beginning it wasn't like that. But she, like Will does have people that make him realize his potential. She never had that. She was always ostracized. She looked different. So from the beginning she was green, and her father rejects her because of her green skin. So that's immediately off the bat. And then she gets used by the powerful Oz to sort of like push his own agenda. And so when she refuses that, she gets labeled wicked. She becomes a wicked witch because she doesn't abide by his agenda. So had she had a support system, a father who loved her despite her differences, anyone along the way that would have made her believe in herself and see that she could do good with this, maybe she would have ended up as a good witch.
I guess so. What a very poignant bad guy break. Well done.
Yeah, I just felt that it was a very, very... the two intersected. These two characters of Will hunting and the Wicked Witch. Whereas Will is able to, by the end of the film, sort of have this positive influence from these people who make him realize the potential that he has, and to not waste it, or not even just waste it, become, the opposite of that. They're really able to access that and use it for good. So if only.
Yeah,
if only. Who knows?
exactly.
Who knows? But we need that, right? We need that
do.
for cinema.
We do.
What a movie, man. That's one of those movies that I remember seeing when I was like really young, and it scared the hell out of me.
Me too.
Wizard of Oz scared the hell out of me when I was a kid.
Me too.
The flying monkeys, I'll get you, little pretty, and your dog too.
Yeah.
Like, I was terrified of that movie. But
me too. Yeah.
it was so good, and it stands the test of time.
Have you seen it anytime fairly recently?
No, I probably haven't seen it in a decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I
haven't seen
gotta watch it again.
Okay. I bet it's been 20 or 30 years since I've seen it.
Are you excited about the new Wicked movie? Have you seen the play?
No, I've not. If I'd seen the play, maybe I'd have more excitement. I'm curious to see it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you did see the play.
I did see the play, yeah.
And
I saw the play in St.
dug it?
Louis in like
2017,
2018.
Okay.
And it was really, really good. And if you know the story of Wizard of Oz, it's super interesting to watch and see like the backstory. It's a good prequel, a really fantastic prequel that kind of like sets the stage and lays the land for what happens in Wizard of Oz. So
awesome. And the film's gotten great buzz too.
Yeah. I mean, you got Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande as the two witches. I mean, that's what a powerhouse.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent right there. Yeah.
So I want to come back to
Please.
Good Will Hunting. Our boy Will. It starts with Professor Lambeau. It leads to the therapist Sean, and his final,
which was awesome.
Which is awesome. His final piece of the puzzle. The person who finally breaks him free of it and makes him realize it the most is Chucky.
Yep. That scene was brilliant because it's so understated.
So good.
And it caught Will so much by surprise.
Yeah, he was not expecting that from him.
No, because it was probably depth and understanding that he'd never seen out of Chucky before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love how Chucky's like, what? Are you insane? Yeah. If we're still doing this in 20 years, I'm going to beat the shit out or something.
Right.
Like he's going to be really upset with him.
And I think that was the perfect missing piece
It was.
because
Totally.
Sean is, by all means, they become closer, but he's still outside of his orbit.
Yep.
Lambeau, certainly.
Yep.
He needed someone close to him.
Yep.
He needed someone he trusted.
Yep.
There's a line in this film where I think it's an argument between Sean and Lambeau before he comes in. He says, "Sorry, am I interrupting? I can come back." They're arguing about Will, and he says,
Go ahead.
He says to him that, "Do you know why he hangs out with those guys? Because any one of them would take a bullet for him,
Yeah.
or would go to war for him.
Yeah.
It's family.
Yeah.
Like that's why he surrounds himself with those people."
And Will is standing outside of the office listening to that. And I thought, watching that scene again yesterday, that's probably the first time people are fighting over Will, wanting something good for him, wanting what's best for him. These are two guys that really do. What's Lambeau going to get out of it? I don't know. I don't know that he had a lot to gain. And Sean doesn't.
Sure.
So it's not like these guys are trying to own him. They're not.
Yeah.
And I just thought about that for Will. What does that feel like to hear these men who really care going at it because of him and what their vision of what they think would be potentially best for him?
In a contract or in like a similar note, going to war for him.
Yeah.
Just like Sean says that his boys would for him.
And look, Lambeau and Sean have it out at least 2-3 times in that movie.
They have their own,
and they do. And I like how Sean points that out to Will, that there's a lot of stuff between us.
There's a lot of history there.
Yeah, and they played that off really well. But I thought too, watching that would endear Will to Sean even more, because it was so clear how well Sean understood him.
Yeah, because he says there when he's yelling at Lambeau, he's saying, "Listen, I'm not going to let the same thing happen to him again.
Yeah.
We can't let that happen to him. He's been abandoned by his parents and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not going to let that, we can't allow that to happen again."
Yep.
And so you're right. Being on the other side of that door and listening to that and hearing that had to make Will feel like, maybe I can really trust this person. I can really open up. I can really become vulnerable.
That's right.
In front of this person, because they have my best interest at heart. They're not going to judge me. I can truly trust them.
And I found that was fascinating that we didn't get to clock that on Will's face. He was behind the quasi-opaque glass. So we just had to imagine the impact that's having without seeing his face, because when he comes in, am I interrupting anything? He's obviously changed his countenance.
Yeah.
But I so wish we could have seen that.
Yeah.
But I love the way they did it.
Yeah, I love the fact that they didn't. I wonder if that was in the script or if that was a director's choice, because I thought that was
brilliant choice.
Brilliant that we didn't see it.
Yeah, me too.
So in that final scene with Chucky, they're out they're doing really grunt work at the construction site. They're like just doing demo, busting their balls, doing hard work. And they're out, they crack a beer, I think it is, out by the truck.
Yep.
And Chucky turns to him and he says, "In 20 years, if you're still here coming over to watch Patriot games with me, I'll kill you.
I'll kill you." That's what he said. Yeah.
It would be an insult to watch if you're still here in 20 years. And then he says, and I absolutely love this. I can't get enough of this. He says, "You know what the best part of my day is? The 10 seconds when I pull up to your door, and I hope that you don't come out. That without any kind of goodbye, without any kind of notice, you've gotten out of here and you've gone and done your thing." That's what he looks forward to the most. And I just thought, how profound.
That is profound.
Moving that is. That somebody wants that for you. Somebody wants what's best for you regardless of how it impacts them. He's going to lose a best friend.
Absolutely. And echoing back to one of our episodes a long time ago talking about love, there's the definition right there.
That's the definition of love right there.
Yeah.
That's somebody who really, really, really cares.
He loves him so much that he is encouraging Will to leave. He knows, yeah, that he'll lose him,
He'll lose a friend.
but that's how much he cares about Will.
It doesn't matter what I want and my interests and needs.
Right.
You are more important. What you want, and I want to see you succeed and be happy and grow and live up to
Exactly.
your
Potential. Very, very good point. I think, yeah,
is what we're saying.
which is what we're saying. I also think that, and maybe this is just me projecting this onto it, but I thought when Chucky said that, he was not only giving him a kick in the ass to get him out of the nest, but he's also letting him know, I'm here, man. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely here.
Right.
100%
Yeah.
for you. I mean,
Yeah.
Will knew that already, but for him to say these things
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
really important, because you're right. That was the missing piece.
Yeah, that was kind of, you need something. It has to come from somebody close to you.
Yeah.
You need, he got it from the professor. He got it from the therapist. But he needed to hear it from somebody that he really trusted, who's been there for years, who has his best interest at heart, who loves him. And you're right, it took him, we saw on his face, he's kind of like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
He like can't believe that Chucky's having this, and he's saying this to him. Like, what do you mean? We're boys. We run around and we beat people up, and we,
Right.
like, this is what we do.
Right.
We get drunk and we kind of have fun. Like, who cares,
Right.
you know? And he's like, no, man, what are you, insane? If you're still here, I'm gonna kill you,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And I just thought that, yeah, you're right. That was sort of the ladder. He needed those 3 levels and those 3 people in order to see.
And the other person, Skylar, he needed that part of the puzzle as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Because that was somebody else who also saw him for him. And she was goofy. I love that she was goofy and silly.
She was awesome.
And even though she was this bright, intelligent,
Yep.
brilliant person, she had this like goofy side.
Yep.
And we kind of saw it come out in him when he was around
We
her.
did. And we could see that she challenged him. And that was one
Yes.
thing that Sean said about his wife who passed away.
Right.
Was
right.
that she challenged him.
Right.
So it was beautiful to watch that parallel.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, yeah, you're listening to Sean talk about what he had, and you're looking at Will with Skylar thinking, maybe that's, exactly that. It's
Yeah.
like the personification of what Sean was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. As I was watching this, it really made me think about my own life and other people's lives as well, which I'll come back to that point and I'll ask you a question. But in my life, man, if I didn't have my mom kicking my ass, like in my ear, pushing me, motivating me, not giving up on me, who knows what the hell would have happened? Because there were times, man, when I was like younger and I started to not care about school. I started to get into drugs. I started to, do stupid shit with my friends. I almost didn't graduate because I skipped so many damn days of school. Like I just didn't care. And then I got arrested. And through all that stuff, my mom never withered. It was never even a thought. My mom was always in my ear. You're going to go to college. You're going to do this. We're going to do that. Never gave up on me. Continued to push me. Even through all that where I wasn't realizing it myself. I didn't realize that I could be this person and could live this other life and I didn't realize my own potential.
And you took that as encouragement, not pressure?
For a time, absolutely, it was pressure.
Okay.
For a time, it speaks even more volumes to the person that my mother is because for all the pushback I gave her, all the arguments, all the fights, all the not sort of realizing what was right in front of me. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
She was leading me there.
Right.
I just wasn't drinking it. But she kept coming back day after day after day after day. And it was only really because of that I was able to come out of it. And I was able to kind of turn things around. I did a complete 180 when I went to college my freshman year. I saw it as an opportunity to like, oh, these people here don't know me. I moved away from home. Nobody here knows who Ryan is.
You could reinvent yourself.
I could reinvent myself.
Yeah.
So I suddenly wasn't the burnout. I wasn't the kid skipping class. I was like, oh, I can like apply myself and try. And then, you know, enjoy learning and go to class and get an education and all these things. And so I did that complete 180. And I've had conversations with her about like, man, how did you not, I needed that person in my life. Like Will needed Lambo to then lead to Sean, to then come back to Chucky and Skylar. He needed those people.
He did.
Otherwise, who knows what would have happened if he would have just been doing demo work, drinking beers, watching games.
Maybe going in and out of prison. Yeah.
Who knows what could have happened if he didn't have that support system.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a question. It brings me to a question.
Okay.
How many people out there do you think there are that are on the precipice of a remarkable turnaround in their life? Like they've come to the fork in the road and they can go down this path, continue the way they are, whatever it is, and they don't have the support system. If only they had it. How many people you think right now in the world who are in the same scenario as Will, and maybe they're not going to get that?
Who might not have Will's gift.
Who might not have the
but still,
access to.
Right. Far too many.
How much wasted potential is out there in the world?
Probably far too many.
Far too many.
Yeah.
How many Einsteins could we have had? How many
wonder.
David Bowies could we have had? How many,
Yeah. No, that's very...
Who knows?
That is
They just
very
didn't
true.
have the right people in their life. They didn't have somebody to see something in them, which is why it's so important we have these teachers, coaches, when you don't get it from your parents, as we see with Will.
Right.
Will's a prime example of somebody who didn't get it from his family, didn't get it from his parents. He didn't have that luxury. He wasn't afforded that luxury in life.
True.
Sean wasn't afforded that luxury in life.
No,
Therapist.
he wasn't. Yeah.
He had to find his own way.
He did.
And so did Will.
So how does that, given the question you just asked, how does that affect you, knowing that there are too many people out there that don't get encouragement, support, pat on the back?
It makes me sad.
Do you feel like you can personally do anything about that?
I think maybe some part of me hopes that, I've spoken about it before, the reason why I make movies and stuff is to like help people, make an impact, make people see things in themselves that they don't see, maybe something like along those lines. So maybe some part of me hopes so, that I can maybe have some sort of impact. Listen, that's why we started the show, right?
Right. Absolutely true.
Movies and shows that I've seen have profoundly impacted my perspective and
Mine
made me
too.
see things in a different light.
Yeah.
They've
mine
changed my life, literally. So I think movies and shows, art in general, has that power. And so I guess, yeah, of course, there is a part of me that hopes that maybe I'll be able to play some sort of part in that. I think I'm also extremely driven to be a father in that way. I have such a strong desire to be a father because I want to be that for someone. I want to be that for a child.
Good for you, man.
I want to have that impact on their life and
Good for
help
you.
them.
I hope you do.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about you? How do you feel about it? How does that make you feel?
I look, it's important to me actually that I am a good friend, brother, neighbor, uncle, whatever role I'm playing, that is important to me to look. It's a big deal for people just to be seen
Yeah.
a lot of the time, and I do my best to give people my attention and my time,
Mm.
and getting better at listening, because I'm realizing how valuable that is.
Oh,
Just to be able to talk to somebody and not necessarily, I'm not asking them to solve anything,
yeah.
just hang out with me and hear me out,
Yeah. Just hear me out.
and I do my best to provide that. So it is important to me
Yeah.
because of not just my brother, but so many others. One of my closest friends I've known virtually my whole life, Doug, unbelievably supportive of me, and will also give me the straight skinny
Yeah.
when he
you
sees
need
it.
that.
And that's something that good friends, or a mother who really loves you, can do.
Yeah.
And that can have such an enormous impact. I try to be that for him as well, and that's a role I take.
Yeah.
I take seriously.
Yeah. Well, I can see it. I
Yeah,
can see it. It comes through, man. I can
I
absolutely see it.
appreciate
Just
that.
in the
Same
little
for you.
time that I've known you, we've known each other what? A little over a year and a half now.
Have we ever said how we met?
I don't know. Have we said how we
No.
met?
It's so LA.
It is very LA. Yeah, me and Joe met in an acting class
Yeah,
right around the corner from
right
here.
around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good old Don
yeah.
Bloomfield.
Don Bloomfield.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, and I think that's why we connected. I
Yeah,
think that's
agreed.
why there's just a synergy. There's something about it. There's just I knew that you were that guy. I knew that you were that kind
Yeah.
of person. And
Me too,
that
yeah.
resonates with me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of tend to surround myself with people like that. And so that's why we continued our relationship outside of the class.
Right.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to tell you that it does come through. I do
I
feel
appreciate
that from you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that our boy Will had this trajectory, had all these moments. I hope that more people can have these moments and have these people in their lives that help them realize their potential. How did you feel about he goes and he takes the job at EMU or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
one of the firms, a good, high-paying,
Mm-hmm.
think tank sort of job, one to be
Mhm.
able to use his brain for good. And then we obviously see by the end of the film that he has that great, he delivers that line right back to,
He's gonna go see about a girl.
he's going to go see about a girl. He says, if the professor calls about that job,
Right.
I'm going to go tell him I have
Tell
to go
him.
see about a girl.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that he took the job and then maybe had us change a heart
I loved it.
and had a second
That
thought
made it
of
more
like,
realistic to me.
wait,
Taking the job was a really big jump for him.
it's a
And
huge
maybe he had to take that jump before taking the jump to California.
step. Mm-hmm.
So to me, I thought that was brilliant. I thought
Yeah.
it was in keeping with the whole movie. I thought the whole movie rang through as, look, I've never lived in Boston. I'm not from Southie, but it rang so authentically.
Oh, did it?
And
Yeah.
so it made sense to me. He took the job and then he made the big jump, because that must have also built him up.
Sure, it's the building blocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you. I love the way that it kind of ended there. I love that and he says, son of a bitch stole my line.
I love
That's
that.
so good.
I love that.
And he's just off on to pursue this amazing woman that he's
Yeah.
realized that he had in his life and he doesn't want to lose.
And tell me you didn't think about what life was like for him at Stanford, or just being out there in California. I don't know. Did you think about that? Because I
100%.
definitely thought about
Definitely. I absolutely did. Yeah.
that. And thinking, well, if she brings him to like any gatherings of other students or professors, and they're going to be like, wait a minute, and then
Yeah.
I could see him like getting some job at Stanford, or,
Right. He just
uh,
automatically works his way to the top. He's the dean of the college. Immediately.
Exactly. Yeah, I just
What a movie, man.
what a movie. It was so incredibly moving. And because you're saying this about The Wizard of Oz, it ages really well.
It does. I watch it. When did this movie come out?
98?
98?
97?
97. Okay. Yeah. 97. And I was 2 years old. And it's still, I've seen it a couple of different times through different periods of my life. And man, every time I see it, I'm just reminded again how damn good of a movie it is.
It really is.
And how I can't believe that they wrote that. I can't believe they got Robin Williams to be in it. And Skarsgård, everybody's just great, and the writing is so good. Anyway, we're giving it its flowers enough. But let's give them some recommendations.
Let's do it. Actually, you do it.
So if you loved Good Will Hunting and you want to see more movies like it, here are 5 movies that you can watch right now. The first is A Beautiful Mind.
Okay.
It's the 2001 film starring Russell Crowe about a mathematician with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And you can rent that now. That's such a good movie. It sort of navigates how he navigates. No pun intended. Number 2, Dead Poets Society, the 1989 film starring Robin Williams about a poetry teacher and his lessons to his students. Mm-hmm. And Robin Williams plus a ton of other people who seemingly got their start in that movie somehow.
They all
I
got
think
a lot of
Ethan
work
Hawke's
after
in
that.
that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
You can watch that on Hulu now. The Pursuit of Happiness, which is a 2006 film starring Will Smith about a struggling father who navigates poverty with his son. And you can watch that on Tubi. Number 4, Finding Forrester.
I have not seen that.
I haven't seen it either. That's a 2000 film starring Sean Connery about a famous author who provides mentorship to a bright student.
Okay.
And you can rent that now. And number 5, capping it off, The Theory of Everything, which is one of my favorite movies. It's a 2014 film starring Eddie Redmayne about Stephen Hawking and his remarkable life. And you can rent that right now.
Great recommendations.
So the moral of the story is we need more people like... What's the professor's name?
Lambeau.
Lambeau. We need more people like Professor Lambeau, like therapist Sean, like seemingly Big Brother Chucky.
Yeah.
We need more people like that in the world.
Too.
Skylar. We need more people like that help each other and help other people realize their potential. Don't let this potential go wasted. If you see somebody who's really got something special, help that person. Encourage them to realize that within themselves. Because sometimes you can't see it. You're too close to it. And that's all right. Let's wrap this thing up, shall we?
Let's do it. Bring it home.
So, as always, thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, you're the main character of your own life. So don't be afraid to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Because sometimes the answers that you've been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time. Peace.